Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you a 4 vs 4 on Bois de Limors, and in this one I'm going to be playing with the 101st Airborne. So you may say, oh, this is completely Allied favoured, 101st Airborne on Bois de Limors. Yeah, it is pretty strong, but I just wanted to play this one out to find out how effective the Flamethrowers are now, since the last patch supposedly nerfed them quite hard. So I am going to be bringing out plenty of Airborne Engineers and trying that out, and that was sort of the main purpose of this game. I am playing with Betts in this one, who's going to be using the 15th Infantry Scots, and we've also got Golden Bullet on the 15th Infantry as well, and then Platfish with the 3rd Canadian Infantry. Then on the opposing side we have 12th SS Panzer, 17th SS Panzer, 91st Luftlandner, and the 3rd Fallschirmjäger, so a nice spread of divisions on the German sides of things. So of course I'm going to be taking the right, just going to be pushing all the way through this forest for the most of the game. Then we've got, I think it was Golden Bullet on my left, and then further left there is Platfish with the 3rd Canadian, and then on the far left we have Betts, who is going to take this left side. He's kind of allocated that. He originally put an attack beacon to go on my left, but was kind of forced to go over to the left side once Golden Bullet put down his marker. So there we go. Right, anyway, let's go to my perspective. We'll basically talk about the strategy and what kind of things I was going to put down. I mean, it's pretty obvious with the 101st. You're going to be going Airborne Rifles, Airborne Engineers, Airborne Leader. Then you're going to be having some M3 guns just to make sure that you can't be killed by half-tracks and so on. So yeah, Airborne Rifles kind of do the job with their bazookas anyway, which is why you have them supplement the Airborne Engineers when you're pushing forwards. But there is a couple things I can note about this map and where to place your troops. So first things first, you want to find the forests that connect. So in this case, the forest that connects me to the opposing side of the map is this one. So this little patch of forest here. I can put troops in here, walk up here, then I can walk up this tree line and then up into here. Right, that's one of the connectors. And the other connector is over here. This one's a bit more obvious. You can put it into the bottom side of this tree line, or even into this tree patch here, and then move up all the way through here. So that's what you've got to try and do when you're playing as 101st, because you want to minimize the time that you're out in the open and minimize the time crossing roads. So coming up here and just crossing quickly into the other forests works really well, and it allows you to smoke where you need to. I didn't use too much smoke in this game, but that's mainly because I didn't need to, and the mortars were doing their suppression anyway, and most of my troops managed to get into the 100-meter combat range that they desired. That was also due to the fact that I was playing against the 3rd Fallschirmjäger, who was using quite a few Sturm Pioneers and Pioneer squads, so he wanted the 100-meter engagement as well, but I just came out a little bit on top due to the management of my infantry early on, I think. Also, I do have a really deadly use of off-map in this game. It's not necessarily that it killed a lot of stuff, it was more that it forced a lot of stuff to fall back, and every time I made them fall back I would take up the ground with my infantry, and it worked out really, really well throughout the game. So I'll basically go into the neutral perspective at some point and show you guys how that works, and how really to utilize off-map really well. So M3 gun on the road, that's just got a semi-decent line of sight when it comes out the other side here. Allows it to take on anything that comes down this road here, although they've already managed to unload an MG34 up here. It's being spotted by my Pathfinders at the moment. Then my infantry is just coming up towards this airborne leader that's beaten them to the punch. Got a 50 cal. That's kind of going into this position just so I had line of sight onto like the edge of all these tree lines, just in case they managed to get there before I did. But they kind of concede quite a lot of ground on this right side early on, and allow me to get into these connecting forests that I really wanted to get into with the Airborne Engineers. Now I was a little late with a couple of my deployment because the deployment was set up straight away. So I actually just brought in a mortar late and a couple of infantry squads. One's a recon squad, the Pathfinder's there for the left side. This Pathfinder squad's trying to get to the right side so that we can spot anything coming down the road. and of course any units in these tree lines, but the MG34 spots my Pathfinders first, and I'm going to be forced to fall them back, just so they don't get cut down in the open. Yeah, I really like this map. There's a big old swamp on this side. It goes all the way down the edge of the map. And over on the left we have the big forest. Just totally awesome. It really, really works well for the 101st because you want to be getting those engagement ranges. It seemed like the 3rd Fallschirmjäger, like I said before, made his deck around the 100-meter engagement range as well, because they come up against a lot of pioneers and Sturm pioneers. Fallschirmjägers are pretty decent as well, but you just got to make sure that they don't get into the range of the Flamethrowers. Otherwise, Airborne Engineers can just make them surrender before they do too much. That's the other thing with like forest engagements. You've got to be very careful about how you place your command. It's very easy to leave them behind. For example, here, I've left my Airborne Engineer here, and now he's like way behind this Airborne Engineer, well, this Airborne Leader here, and it's way behind the Airborne Engineer that's pushing into this tree line. Got my Airborne Rifles at their ideal engagement range with the 30 cal, but they're going to be hit by the Fallschirmjägers and the MG34 there. That's going to allow my mortar to fire at the MG34. Airborne Engineers on the left side take a lot of damage from a lot of infantry they bump into on the left side. But here you can see the Fallschirmjägers, as I was saying. Airborne Engineers, they really just do a lot of damage to them. Maybe not as quickly as they used to. That's one thing I did find with the Airborne Engineers. They're not as quick to fire. Like they kind of take a little while to fire their napalm now. But you can see with the help of the mortar and the flames, pinning down Fallschirmjägers, almost taking out the MG34 with the mortar as well. On this side though, I'm being flooded by Fallschirmjägers. These are 2-star and 3-star Fallschirmjägers, all taking on an Airborne Rifles, and my Airborne Engineers down here were damaged early on, so just forced to fall back on this left flank. Want to try and get into a better position here. Probably should have been using this mortar, but hadn't unloaded it yet. I was probably busy concentrating on this right side instead. As you can see, there is a lot of units here as well. I just jump to the neutral perspective. You can see there's like a bunch of units here and a bunch of units here. He was doing the same as I was and focusing on the connecting forests, and then having MG34s cover the open, which is quite good. He's just got to be careful that he doesn't allow off-map to absolutely ruin him. I'm bringing up some reinforcing infantry here, some more Airborne Rifles and Airborne Engineers. Now I have the mortar ready to go. I can use that to take on the Fallschirmjägers here a lot easier. Airborne Engineers are being pinned by the MG34 there, so I'm forced to fall them back. Airborne Rifles, I kind of moved them forwards into the open a little bit to give me some targets for the mortars. Now I'm going to bring up some reinforcements. I've also got an M22 Locust on the way, because that will be good for helping pin down some of these Fallschirmjägers without being pinned down itself. So it can use its HE shell and the 30 cal to pin down these units without taking basically any damage. Just got to make sure it doesn't get into range of the Pupchen. Otto is also making use of these ME109s, 2-star ones, to pin down my Airborne Rifles, so I am forced to pull some units back there. Just using the mortars to cover off where I need to. Do lose a 50 cal as well in that engagement. Fallschirmjägers coming out into the open there, they're going to get hit pretty damn hard by the Airborne Rifles and the Engineers. ME109 still strafing the same place. With that Fallschirmjäger finally going down there. I'm bringing up some more infantry. You can see that I was probably floating a little bit of points here, as I do bring up 6 infantry squads at once. The thing I find though is that often when like units are being really efficient, like especially Airborne Engineers and Airborne Rifles and so on, you can, I guess you're not really supposed to like float points ever, but you can kind of get away with it when your units are being that efficient. In this case, Airborne Rifles come up against Fallschirmjägers, they're not going to do too well. But since those Fallschirmjägers are there, I can kind of just enclose upon them with the Airborne Rifles, Airborne Engineers and Pathfinders. My Engineers are just running down the MG34 squad. if he stops, he's going to get into range of my flamethrowers, and I managed to catch him out anyway and break through there, so that was really nice. This mortar's busy hitting that MG34, and it's going to take it out. So we're getting the infantry kills we need in order to continue pushing up, and the MG34s are the main thing that will stop me crossing in the open, so taking out those really helps me out. I've just got to push the Fallschirmjägers out of this tree line, and then I'm safe to overextend with the engineers into this forest, because I don't want to get cut off here. It doesn't really matter if you get cut off as 101st, because you do have the wings on most of your units, but still, you don't necessarily want to, because you would lose a lot of territory if they managed to get behind you and cut you off like that. We're moving into phase B in 2 minutes. Over on the left side, I believe Stephen was using the mortars to just pound Betts' 6-pounders for most of the game, which was really annoying for him, so he's going to be forced to invest in tanks instead. But there is a Bois de Firefly on the field over there. Meanwhile here though, airborne rifles find some Fallschirmjägers, we're going to be killing those off. Got some extra infantry coming up here, going to be finding those MGs, going to be forced to unload these airborne rifles so they don't get taken out by the MG34, and I'm just going to get both of these mortars to fire on that so I can get rid of them and allow me to push on. These airborne engineers are doing a fantastic job though, although we are going to see Golden Bullet have his Spitfires shot down by Otto. Also a Ju-87 coming in on this side. I'm going to bring out 2 Mustangs to try and take care of that. That ME-109 is still in the sky though with 2 stars, and he brings out another one, so I basically pull off the attack towards the Ju-87 and just get my Mustangs out of there. So I don't want to engage 2 2-star ME-109s. It's very easy for them to basically just kill my Mustangs very quickly. They don't have the most amazing durability. Here we're going to be seeing the Flak 20mm take on my engineers. And we're seeing Betts bring in 2 Spitfire Mark 9s to try and catch out the 2-star ME-109s, but they go down very quickly. So we're not doing too well in terms of the air war. Golden Bullet has lost his Spitfires, Betts has lost his Spitfires. My Mustangs are not in the best position. And I lose my little pocket of ground here because the Flak 20mm pins down my engineers. Unfortunately they actually surrender as they get pinned down by the 20mm, which was a bit of a micro mistake in my part, but either way we're still making ground elsewhere. I managed to take out the Fallschirmjägers in this little tree patch in the middle at the crossroads, and I managed to take out a lot of the infantry in this tree line, so I'm just literally charging across the open. Now, I said normally you wouldn't want to do this, but considering these are airborne rifles, I can pin them down and then hit them with the mortar as well and do a lot of damage, and then just use them to like cover the airborne engineers as they get up to the more concentrated forest area. So ME-109s coming in. I would have liked to have seen those ME-109s actually hit my mortars, but those ME-109s with the rockets were actually Seth's, the 91st Luftlander player. So I don't think he was aware of where my mortars were, whereas if it was Otto bringing in those, I think he probably would have targeted the mortars. Either way, Flak 20mm going down there. We're pinning down some Fallschirmjägers in the open. I brought over some airborne rifles to help with the Ersatztruppen in front of Golden Bullet. And we're really starting to make some ground now. 53% territory lead. I've got an airborne leader here just waiting to advance with the airborne rifles and the airborne engineers. Got engineers moving up on the right side, but they don't have any command with them, which was a bit of a mistake on my part. The ME-109s are going to come in to strafe them, so I'm just going to fall them back. Mortar's going to be hitting the Ersatztruppen there, and we're going to see another ME-109 hit my rifle squads with their rockets. So this airborne engineer is in a nice location at the moment, can basically flame anything that comes down the road, is also supported by the airborne leader, so won't surrender this time round. going to be seeing a second Airborne Engineer squad come up as well. Some off-map now as well from the third Fallschirmjäger player. So I managed to take out my command infantry squad that was there, but I have an extra backup behind. And that only put a delay really on my push into the next tree line. I got some reinforcing pathfinders coming up. Quite simply just to be able to scout the edge of the tree lines before I move on with the rifles, but I decided to just go for it anyway. And I'm also starting to invest in some anti-air now. So I was kind of planning to use my anti-air in conjunction with my Mustangs to take down these ME-109 G6R6s. And at the moment they're flying away and my Mustangs are faster, so I'm assuming that I can go for this kill onto both the ME-109s. And at the moment he's still like ground strafing, but what happens is Seth comes in with the ME-109 G2 and he manages to get onto the back of one of my Mustangs really well and shoot it down. And the second Mustang gets stuck in a bit of a predicament as well, because that ME-109 is so slow that it's actually able to like turn inside the circle of the Mustang, so shoots that down as well, and I lose both my Mustangs pretty much for free. It was really, really bad, and that's just before my Bofors arrive as well. So I feel like in that scenario I definitely should have just been a lot more passive and patient with my Mustangs, and waited until I had these Bofors actually unloaded before I started that engagement, and made sure the engagement was over the AA, because I really sort of wasted that. Either way, my Airborne Engineers that were pushed up ended up dying to a couple of these Sturm Pioneer squads that are coming in. You can see that my opponent Otto has reinforced with a lot of these Sturm Pioneers and Pioneers. He's also got a couple of Panzerstreck squads coming up, but since he used off-map artillery on me, I'm going to be bringing in my own off-map soon enough. Before I do, I just got to try and deal with this Stug 3, so I'm going to try and keep these airborne rifles hidden and get a sort of ambushing shot onto the Stug 3. Bringing in the Stug 3 is a relatively nice idea. Getting some fire support for your infantry units to cover across the open is a nice idea. But yeah, here comes the off-map, the Ford GPA OP with 356mm off-map. Really does pack a punch. So we'll see if that can do the job. Taking out the Puption there. And this is before some Pioneers trying to cross the open. I was hoping the airborne rifles might help pin those down so I could engage them with these airborne rifles, but I don't want to get too close to the Pioneers, otherwise they will be throwing their 20 HE power grenade at me, and that's the last thing I want. That will end up making me lose my airborne rifles very quickly, so I'm just going to end up running away from that engagement. Did manage to kill the MG34 in the process though, and my Bofors really starting to come alive as they really do some damage to that ME-109. What happens here? My airborne rifles, they engage an infantry squad and then they get killed off by the Stug 3. And the Pathfinders unfortunately get hit very hard as well. Just about managed to get them out of line of sight though. Here comes my my next combination, Phase B combination. So Phase A combination is airborne rifles, airborne engineers and airborne leaders. But my Phase B combination is engineers and glider leaders. So here we come with the engineers. They really match up to the Pioneers quite well, and also the Sturm Pioneers, and they're very cheap, so bringing them in works really well, and that's what I'm going to be trying to do here. Unfortunately my mortar gets into line of sight of the Stug here, so the Stug is going to be taking that out, but here comes the off map. So I'm going to put it to the neutral perspective for a little while so you can see what we're sort of up against. My opponent's basically got a lot of infantry in quite concentrated areas, which is fair enough because he's got to try and attack through the connecting forest, right? Especially with Flamethrowers. But what I'm going to do is kind of take advantage of this, hit the connecting forests with the off-map, and what it will mean is as soon as that off-map comes down I can just push up with the engineers and take the ground. Also got to cut off this Sturm Pioneer, so doing that quickly with the engineers here. There we go, Sturm Pioneer's dead. Off-map comes in, manages to kill off one of the Fulsham Sturm Pioneers and forces them to fall back. Also forces the Stug 3 to fall back, and since they are falling back now, and I can see where the front line's sort of bending, where the infantry squad is, I basically predict where they're going to end up. So I put another artillery strike basically directly behind the initial one, and all the while I'm just going to run up my engineers. Spitfire Mark 9 here gets away thanks to my air. Going to be hitting that ME-109 very hard. Also, I'm taking this opportunity to use my M22 to take out the Stug 3 because it's pinned, and I just broke its tracks with its side armor facing. So the M22 has plenty of chance to like take that out now. Furthermore, I'm also bringing up some more engineers and glider leader to push into these forests. That artillery definitely hits the mark. Takes a lot of these squads down to 1 health. Just in time for my engineers to arrive and take out the remainder of the forces there. So these engineers, they're not in the best spot, honestly. Unloading them on the road wasn't ideal. But thankfully the Fallschirmjäger squad's only got 1 health, and I do manage to pick them off quite nicely. Airborne Engineers also going to be moving forwards with the napalm, managed to take out a squad that was very helpful. ME-109 actually manages to pick off the Lycus finally, and I was hoping I would shoot that down, but I didn't quite manage to get it. Taking out the Fallschirmjäger there. Nice use of the napalm. And we're starting to really break through, and this is another artillery strike just behind the last one. You can sort of tell where most of the enemy forces are going to be by the front lines, so just putting a mark down, leaving my engineers outside of the radius of that artillery strike, and then as soon as it comes down I can push in and sweep up the remainder. That is literally what I'm doing here. On this right side, bit of a mistake by Otto, manages to get into range of my airborne rifles. Ideally what you'd want to do if you were bringing down a Stug on this side is have it way out here, not on the road. Because what ends up happening is the Stug 3 actually gets a weapon damage. And what that allows me to do is just roll up an AT gun right next to it, because it has no ammunition left. But in comes the off map, and you can see that it's opened up a path for my engineers. So engineers just going to push on through. And you can see these Fulsham Pioneers and Luftwaffe Führer are falling back now. So Airborne Engineers going to be coming up and taking on the Panzerabwehr. Meanwhile, these engineers continuing to push forwards to take on these command squads. I've taken out the majority of their initial infantry now, so I can just go and find these command squads and take them out. That's pretty much all I wanted to show off in terms of the off-map placement. That's like 1 off-map car, 3 strikes, one after the other, behind each other, and it basically allows you to make so much ground, as you can see. Obviously I've been making ground elsewhere just by using Airborne Engineers and Airborne Rifles, but in general a lot of the ground on the left side was won due to that off-map. This Airborne Rifles, what I'm doing with this is just sneaking it as far up as I can, just so that I can get like ambushing shots with the bazooka in future. I'm also, as you can see, wheeling up a Jeep right next to the Stug 3. I know that's got a weapon damage, so I don't have to worry about it. I can just bring up the Jeep, unload it where I like, and then just kill that. And as long, if he doesn't like make it retreat, then he's just going to lose it. Managed to make those Fulsham Pioneers surrender thanks to the GMC HMG. M1 leader comes in and picks up that surrender there. Going to be seeing the engineers take out the Luftwaffe Führer. My engineers are going to die there after they exchange grenades. Well, the engineers have a satchel charge, so it has a bit of a delayed hit, but either way, traded the squads there. And now I'm also bringing up an M4 Double D. So M1 guns got all the time in the world to take out this Stug 3. M4's just going to be rushing up to help out in the mid here. Since he's using so many Pioneers and Sturm Pioneers, I'm pretty safe to use the M4 in close combat. Stug 3 is now dead on the right side as well. And we are pushing a +2, thanks to us owning 58% of the map. I've made quite a lot of ground on this right side. Golden Bullet's also done relatively well on my left. This is still struggling against those mortars and artillery spam on the left side, but yeah, Flatfish is doing okay as well. And this air engagement's still going on here. Seth getting hit pretty hard by the Spitfires, but plenty of AA on both sides now. And we are going to be seeing loads of ME-109s come in, and Flatfish is going to lose both of these Spitfires. Not doing well in the air at all throughout this game. But I've just got the Bofors to cover my side of things. M4 finds a 20mm, takes it out very quickly. I spot this artillery piece, and I'm just going to off-map arty that, because there might be other things in this forest. So I brought up a second GPAOP now, sent the old one back to the edge of the map. And just got to continue forwards. You can see I've also just bought up 2 more Mustangs, and I'm going to be trying to go for another play onto the ME-109s, but as you could see, they have got a lot of airplanes, so you're going to have to play it very, very carefully. And I was basically just going to prepare to have like a huge AA wall and then take them down, but we'll see what happens. The Geb 40 gets destroyed. My airborne rifles have managed to get all the way up to this T-junction, and as you can see, another tank comes in unwittingly down the road, and it's very, very close to being hit by the airborne rifles. Boom. Another Stug down. So with that done, just going to continue to move up my engineers and airborne leader here. I'm also slowly moving forwards all of the Bofors to not only act as AA but also as fire support. Like having the Bofors on the edge of the trees here while I move across the open would be nice, but I don't need to worry about that for now because you can see the front line isn't pushed up. So I can get into this side of the trees very easily without having to worry. Furthermore, I'm pushing up on this side, getting the glider leader to follow those guys up. Glider leader are assisting these engineers. And I'm also bringing up some 50 cals to allow me to cover the open if I need to. But so far, not too much going on this right side anymore. We made a lot of ground, and I think Otto was just trying to recover his ground by saving up for a large amount of infantry again, because if we jump to the neutral perspective, a bunch of infantry come in my way. So incoming Mustangs, I'm going to be going for the kill onto the HS-129 because I see 3 ME-109s engaging the Spitfires here. But what ends up happening again is even more ME-109s come in and Mustangs get caught out. I don't play over my AA, and it was just such a big mistake. I end up losing both my Mustangs there. Just really not the best show of airplay in this game at all. I've lost 4 Mustangs pretty much for nothing. Managed to return the kill onto one of the ME-109s with the Bofors, but yeah, and that was just really silly of me taking that engagement and getting baited in by the HS-129 there. I really thought I'd be able to kill it quick enough, but I didn't, and I paid the price. So I was forced to lose the airborne rifles there to the overwhelming amount of infantry that found them. I'm going to be trying to go with a little push with the airborne engineers here, assisted by the airborne leader. I've also got the M4DD and the GMC-HMG waiting to help out, and also the off-map, but I'm actually moving up the off-map to take out the Flak 88 at the moment. That Flak 88 is going to be hitting my engineers. I kind of regretted using it on the Flak 88 after I spotted both these Vulcan Pioneers, because I could have definitely put the off-map in this forest and it would have made life a lot easier. But instead I'm forced to use like engineers and the airborne engineers to continue pushing. Loads of Pathfinders coming in now. I've also got even more AA arriving. And since I'm not really going to be using an Air Force anymore, I've just got to rely on my AA. And I've got 6 Bofors on this division, so should be more than enough to shoot down aircraft if anyone flies directly overhead. There goes the Flak 88, taking care of that. Also unwittingly make a Stur 42 fall back, so don't have to deal with that for a little while. And that's pretty much it. Lose an engineer squad there to the infantry in this forest. I don't have to worry about them pushing out too much, especially with the M4 here. Like, if they come out the edge of the tree line, they get hit by either the Bofors, the 50 cals. I've also got the GMC HMG on the right side. They're all in position to like hit anything as soon as it shows itself. These Bofors hitting the ME-109s very hard as they fly past. Not quite getting kills just yet though. So Sturm Pioneer, Fallschirm Pioneer coming on to the Airborne Engineers. The Airborne Engineers, that engagement range is not ideal at all because they can only use their M1 Garand, so I'm just going to force them to fall back. Spitfire is going to be going down. ME-109 gets hit very hard, but not quite dead yet. Got 5 Bofors on the field.
Gun checked and ready.
I've also got some supply vehicles. These were originally here for the mortars, but I'm now going to be using them to reload the Bofors. I also reloaded a couple of the Airborne Engineer squads and Engineer squads early on. And that's something that I must actually stress quite a lot, is make sure that you do like resupply infantry with those like 20 HE power grenades, because without them they're pretty much useless in most cases. So resupplying them is actually pretty important, and same with engineers. Without their napalm, what they're going to do, just like tickle them with the Thompson machine gun? I don't know. They're just not very effective. So making sure that you resupply stuff, it's definitely worth doing. ME-109 does go down there. We're having a small engagement on this right side with Fallschirm Pioneers and Sturm Pioneers. I brought in loads of Pathfinders. I have a lot of Pathfinders on this division, so making use of them in this situation is a nice... It's just worth doing at this point because I didn't really have too much infantry left. I have just a couple units of engineers and another glider coming in. These are the last 2 units of engineers that I have. So accompanied by the Pathfinders, we can find our targets and kill them very quickly. That's what I was going to go for there. Stug 3 is going to be coming down the road. Otto is going to be going straight into my glider leader with the bazooka. Probably the best thing about the Airborne Engineers, or the 101st Airborne, is that they do have a lot of bazookas on their division, so ambushing people is quite easy, and in this case glider leader gets a free kill there. Off map coming in finally onto the location that I said before, and that's going to allow my Airborne Engineers to push in afterwards with the assistance of the glider and glider leader. JU-88 gets hit very hard there. HS-129 forced to fall back almost immediately. JU-88 did manage to kill off my 50 cal and the glider leader, but either way, didn't matter in the end. Over on this side, Pathfinders get taken out by the bombing strike as well. Those JU-88s are going to be on cooldown for a while, so I wasn't too concerned that I was going to be hit by them again. Bofors, however, going to be hitting these ME-109 G2 BR-21s very hard. You can see there is the 5 Bofors getting onto the same target. They go down very quickly. The ME-109 doesn't want to suffer the same fate, so actually ends up falling back in the opposite direction. If he'd flown over, the Bofors would have been shot down for sure. But what I've been doing throughout the game is also shifting my Bofors more to the left, so that they cover more of the sky. A small engagement there by the engineers and the Fallschirm Pioneers. I lose out on that with my with my engineers. I don't think I killed the Fallschirm Pioneers. Yeah, my engineer's just dying a bit too quick there. Pathfinder's coming up against the Pioneers. As you can see, we're getting very close to the end of the game. 64% territory lead, +2 on the board. 2,500 points is ours. And that is victory. So after 32 minutes and 8 seconds, we are victorious. And if we jump to the team's perspective, I got a rather nice kill death. It would have been even better if I hadn't lost all those Mustangs. If you think about it, 600 of those points is Mustangs being shot down, so that wasn't ideal. But basically everyone else on my team not even going positive, but it is hard in the late game to go positive against the Axis, of course. Stephen on the left side, or Stefan, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, 1,558 kills to 565 losses, was relying on artillery quite a lot, didn't make the sort of punch that he needed to secure ground for his team. We saw Otto, he actually got a negative KD with the 3rd Fallschirmjäger. He was putting up a decent fight though, and Seth, I think he got so many kills mainly due to his Air Force. There was just so many ME-109s at the end of that game, there was really not much point in contesting the air, so I just invested in anti-air instead, and it seemed to work out. So there we have it. In terms of kills, pretty standard stuff, just Airborne Engineers and Airborne Rifles getting kills early on, then the Naval Battery came in, got a few more kills. M22 took out the Stug 3, which was nice, and again, more infantry just getting kills. And the main thing to look for is if like an infantry squad got more kills than it's worth. So in this case, Airborne Engineer took out 20 mil and Sturm Pioneer, paid itself off. Engineer here took out 2 Sturm Pioneers, great. This Airborne Engineer took out 3 squads, 2 Fallschirm Pioneers and a Fallschirm Fuhrer. Like, as long as they get like 2 for 1, it's always worth it. And this naval battery paid itself off just about, taking out the artillery, Flak 88 and a Luftwaffe Fuhrer there. And then some Bofors getting some air kills at the end as well. And there you have it. So that's all my kills, that's the game. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.